Okay, let's have a look at the basics of Photoshop and just make sure that we're all right with how that works. So I've opened Photoshop. I'm going to create a new document and we'll just have a look at the setup in here. Same as in InDesign, we've got a bunch of presets that we can choose from: web stuff, art stuff, phone stuff, video stuff. Let's go on to print, just for the sake of getting an A4 piece of paper. And over on here we can give it a name, and we can see the size of things: millimeters, centimeters, inches, pixels, etc. Just the same as we've seen already in InDesign. And we can switch it from landscape to portrait. We're going to ignore the artboards bit there, and we're going to leave this on 300 pixels per inch. So this is quite a high resolution image for that you would have photographs and things for print at, but we're not going to concern ourselves with printing right now. I just want to leave it at high quality there. And you've got pixels per inch or pixels per centimeter. Make sure it's on pixels per inch. RGB color, so it's for screens. If it was for print, it will be CMYK. So we have red, green, and blue. So that's light being emitted from your screen. Or CMYK, that's color printed onto paper and then reflecting light. We want RGB. Background, we'll leave that white. We've got a color profile associated with this image, which we don't necessarily need to concern ourselves with. So let's press create and then just have a look at the basic layout that we've got here. So if we just go to Window Workspace, and we'll just see that it's in Essentials, and we can reset the Essentials mode and it'll just lay everything out in a basic setup. Over on the left hand side we've got our tools. We can click and hold the mouse down, and you can see that some of them, when they've got the little triangle in the bottom right corner, they've got various different versions of the tool. Like here with the selection marquee tool, there's 4, and this one, lasso, there's 3, etc. Okay, and also you can see that they've got keyboard shortcuts that come up as well. So for the move tool, that's V. For the lasso tool, that is L, etc. Paint bucket, G. Okay, and then up on the top here you have the more kind of in-depth settings for whichever tool you've got chosen. And so it's good to check whether you've got, when for instance in your move tool you've got auto select and layer switched on, and that means that as you build up an image out of various different component parts, they'll be on different layers. Here's your layers palette over in the bottom right hand corner, and what will happen is you'll click on a thing, it'll jump to the relevant layer and you'll be able to move it around. Yeah, so that's the layers. We can add new layers by clicking on this little square with the plus sign in it, and it'll add a layer. We can double click and we can give it a new name, call it whatever we want. And if we want to get rid of a layer, we can drag it into the little bin, or we can just click on the bin and it will delete it. This layer is locked. Often what you find when you put a new image into Photoshop is that it is locked automatically and you just can't do anything to it. So to get out of that, if you just double click on it, you'll get this box come up and just press OK, and it will unlock that layer, and now you can do whatever you want with it. We've got some other palettes up here for things. I'm going to ignore Learn Libraries and Adjustments. We might have a look at these, I'm not sure. History is a good one. This is like an undo, and you can go back various states and you can actually see them in here, whereas normally you would just press Command Z or Control and Z to undo something that you've messed up or whatever. So we can switch on rulers on the side, left side and top of our document, which is quite useful, and that's with Command or Control and R. and you can see that's flashing something up in view up here, so that means that something's happening in this menu, and that is this rulers thing is happening. Okay, and what's useful in there is that we can snap things to stuff. Okay, so in the way that things were sticking to guides in InDesign, we can do the same sort of thing here, and you can see that it's got a load of stuff already switched on. Snap is switched on, and it's going to snap to guides, grid, layers, document bounds, all sorts of things. Whatever it is that we basically put in here is going to stick to stuff. As we move things around, it will try and line up with things, which is quite useful. I think it's useful just to look at making guides in Photoshop, because in the way that we set up a InDesign document, we could set it up with columns and things like that. We don't have that same thing right from the start in Photoshop, but we can just go and add guides in. And so having your rulers switched on top and left is a useful way to get started with this. And we just need to go to the move tool, and we can click inside the little ruler, and we can just drag guides, and you can see this is trying to help us here. It's sort of sticking to the center of this image for us, and there's a guide. And we can do the same here. We can see again it's trying to stick to stuff. And using the move tool, when I go near these guides, you can see how it changes into this little move guide tool. So that means that I can edit these, which is quite useful. If I'm in another tool, I can't do that. So we'll stick with the move tool for now, and we'll put a few guides on, just try and divide it up like that. If we wanted to make some shapes in the same way that we were making shapes in InDesign, we could use the selection marquee tools to do this, or we could draw those things out with a tool like this, the rectangle, ellipse, etc. And that's just the same as the way that it works in InDesign. However, the difference is that this is going to create a vector image for us. So we can see over here we've got a new layer now, and it's got this little square with these little points all around each corner, and this is a shape. And it says up here, this box has popped out, this is live shape properties, and so it has certain things about it. Similar in the way that we had stuff in InDesign. We've got different colors that we can choose in here, and we can make the outside line thicker or turn it off just by having no fill in this little box here. And you can see the dimensions of it and stuff like that, and different color options and whatnot. So that's just inside here. And we can move this thing around so that we can place it somewhere and do things with it. And if we want to make a copy of it, we could hold down the Option or Alt key, and we can click and drag, and you can see that you'll get a copy of that layer, that thing that we've just clicked on, and it's also made a new layer for us in the layers palette. Okay, so we can move those around. I've clearly not centered my lines properly, but these are vector drawings, so they're just basically mathematical information about the fact that this is a circle and it's been coloured in particular colour. So if we wanted to do any kind of Photoshop effects to it, maybe things aren't going to work in the same way that they might do if you used a photograph. I don't know, this is a new update in here, as always seems to happen with Photoshop. Yeah, so here we go. So this shape layer, because that's what this is, you can see that it's got a little shape here, must be rasterized or converted to a smart object before proceeding. If rasterized, it will no longer be editable as a shape. So we're going to rasterize it, and what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the numerical kind of, this is the size of this circle, it is this big, it has these dimensions, and it is in this location, and we're just going to turn it all into pixels. Okay, and so now you can see on this layer in the layers palette that it doesn't have the little box around it anymore. It is just a green blob in the middle of the canvas area, and we've jumped into our filter that we were wanting to have a look at. And this is just a mess around filter that's going to run a waveform, like a sound wave, through the shape. So we can mess about with this and make some kind of weird blob like that.